This is the tragic story of Michelle Lee, a case that shocked a community and exposed the darkness hidden in plain sight. The afternoon at the hospital parking garage was like any other. It looked like anyone could come and go at any time. Nursing student Michelle Lee walked to her car, but she never got home. She was nice and worked hard. It wasn't loud, and no one was nearby to see what happened. In the end, her locked, empty car was found. At first, it looked like she had just disappeared. The truth, though, was much scarier. Someone was angry and jealous, and they had a plan that no one saw coming. That's why she went missing. What really took place in that quiet parking lot? Who had been around to wait for her? Michelle was born in San Diego, California, on October 12, 1984. Her family was big and close. Her home was always full of life because they had 15 cousins, many aunts and uncles, and her parents. She lived with her parents, her brother Michael, and their cousin Christine. Michelle looked up to her mother, who was a kind nurse and wanted to be like her. That dream became her mission after her mother died. Michelle took care of her family as a way to honor her mother's memory. Michael, her brother, talked about how she stepped in with love and strength and became a leader for everyone else. She taught her cousins and siblings how to cook and drive and was always there for them when they needed help. They all went to her. Michelle had to wait 5 years to get into a nursing program, but she was finally accepted into a fast-tracked course that would last only 1 year. She was almost done with school by May 2011, only 6 months away. It was her last day of her clinical rotation at Kaiser Permanente in Hayward's maternity ward. She had achieved perfect grades. Michelle was always happy, worked very hard, and was always upbeat. She never hesitated to offer to help or take on extra work. She worked a regular shift at the hospital on May 27, 2011. If you were a student nurse at the facility, it was your last day on Friday. Everyone was excited because the weekend was coming up soon. Michelle had even planned to go to Reno to see friends. At 6:55 p.m., she told her boss she was going to the third-floor parking garage to get something from her car. In the corner, her white Honda SUV was parked. Later, surveillance showed her walking toward the car, pausing and then changing directions. After about 17 minutes, the SUV finally drove off from the lot. Michelle was still not there when the staff tried to get the students together at 9 p.m. to end the day. The break room was still where her coat was. There was no one there when her phone rang, and she hadn't signed out. Because her teacher was worried, she went to the parking garage with hospital security to check on her regular spot. It was quiet and empty. All of a sudden, Michelle's SUV drove back to the hospital and up to the third floor. The teacher tried to tell it to stop. The car stopped for a moment, turned around, and quickly drove off again. The teacher was sure it wasn't Michelle behind the wheel because the behavior was so out of character. She called the police right away. Michelle hadn't been heard from in over 10 hours by the next morning. A lot of friends and co-workers rushed the police station, saying they were sure something was seriously wrong. The police started their search in the hospital parking lot. Soon after, police found bloody marks where Michelle's car had been parked. At 9 a.m., they found her SUV parked in a visitor's spot outside of an apartment building not far away. The car's doors were locked. Michelle didn't know the person whose ID card she found inside her bag with her laptop and her own. People said that ID was stolen a few days before she went missing. The police ruled out a random attack. This looked planned. Perhaps someone who knew Michelle's schedule used the stolen ID to get close to her. The hospital records showed that Michelle got a strange phone call about 30 minutes after she left for her car. A woman calling herself Michelle called the emergency room and asked to talk to her teacher. When she was told she was in the wrong department, she asked that a message be sent to the right person. The father of her children had a heart attack. While the police towed Michelle's car to be looked at, her brother Michael got a text message from her phone. "I'm okay." Soon after, there was another message that said, "I'm not missing. Something is wrong with my phone. Everything was erased, and my battery died." Her friends also started getting messages, but each one had a different story. Her tire was flat. She went back to Reno. She was not well. She needed a break from Facebook and other sites. Her ex-boyfriend sent her a text message. "Who is this?" was the answer. The reward was set at $20,000 by May 31st. In just a few days, it went up to almost $50,000. Someone hired by the La family to look into things. More than 100 volunteers helped with the search. They were split into 14 groups that covered miles of ground. In the end, the prize reached $100,000. The police kept coming back to the name of Giselle Esteban, an old friend, as they looked into Michelle's life. They used to be very close and even moved in together when they went to college. Giselle was seeing a man named Scott Marasigan. They had a daughter together who is 6 years old. But after they broke up, Michelle and Giselle started to fight again. Michelle and Scott had a few slow dates in the past, but they both agreed that they would be happier being friends. Still, Giselle couldn't get off the thought that they had been more than friends. Even though there was no real reason to be wary, Giselle started to act differently around Michelle. Michelle wouldn't break up with Scott just to make Giselle happy, which wasn't true jealousy. Scott was just a friend because she had moved on and was dating someone else. That was the end of Michelle and Giselle's friendship. When the police talked to Giselle, who is 27 years old, she didn't try to hide how much she disliked Michelle. The investigation then found Scott. The next thing they found would change everything. Scott had always been around, and many people who knew Michelle knew him. He even helped look for Michelle when she went missing. Detectives noticed how honest he seemed and how shaken he looked while they were questioning him. When Scott talked to the police, he told them about the problems he was still having with his ex-girlfriend Giselle. Throughout their relationship, there had been many ups and downs and arguments. During a very hard time, Giselle went back to live with her family and brought their daughter with her. Even though things were crazy, Scott still cared about his daughter's health. He tried several times to make things right with Giselle so that things would be stable, but it never worked. He showed the police a long list of messages that Giselle had sent, many of which were angry and mean to Michelle. Her first message said, "I hope you find what you're looking for in someone as disgusting as her." One said, "Michelle has dug her own grave by being a homewrecker, and she won't be a problem much longer." Texts that said things like, "Your Giles will get what she deserves, and she won't pass her midterms," became more and more threatening. Giselle had sent Michelle messages, one of which said, "If you were ever really a friend to Scott or me, you'd just leave us alone. You're the one who followed me to San Francisco." It was very upsetting when Scott also played a recording he had made during one of Giselle's angry outbursts. Their daughter was in the back seat of the car with her. In the recording, she talks to him about Michelle and makes scary threats. Someone heard her cold, firm voice say, "If you do it again, this is your last and final chance. I'm going to kill you and her." That is something you can take to the grave. Scott said that Giselle had been to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation and was told she had bipolar disorder and manic depression. She would sometimes show up at his house without being invited, sneaking in quietly and sitting alone until someone noticed her. In the end, Scott got full custody of their daughter. Things got even worse after this decision was made. Giselle moved back to Haywood to be close by, and things got worse until a judge gave her a restraining order that said she couldn't be 100 feet away from Scott or his family. The order was given just 3 days before Michelle Lee went missing. At the same time, police in Haywood started working with police in Fairfield to solve a case from the previous year, involving a nurse with the same last name who had also gone missing without a trace. In contrast to the Fairfield case, Michelle's car was found locked and secured, which showed that the last person who drove it had been careful not to be caught. Watch video was being looked at, and her family was still hoping she would come home safely. That hope started to fade, though, when the family learned that Michelle's blood had been found in her car. Even though they weren't given many specifics, the police confirmed that the case was now being treated as a murder. Even after hearing the sad news, Michelle's family didn't give up and kept looking for her. Giselle's name kept coming up, so the police interviewed her in a formal way. She looked like she was pregnant and said she was at the hospital the night Michelle went missing, saying she had gone for a checkup. When asked about her friendship with Michelle in the past, she said that things had changed after what she called a betrayal. She was let go after the interview, but the police kept an eye on her and put a GPS tracker on her car. They were sure she had something to do with Michelle going missing. What wasn't clear was whether she had done it by herself. Investigators wondered if she could have done the crime on her own, because of how big she was. Giselle had become the main person of interest in Michelle's disappearance as suspicions grew and more evidence came in. A crime lab team went with the police to Giselle's apartment and carefully looked over her car and even went through the trash. Even though there was a lot of attention on the case, no formal charges had been filed yet, and Giselle told local media that she had nothing to do with Michelle's disappearance. When Scott called the police with a scary discovery, the investigation took a dramatic turn. His phone, Michelle's, was found in the back seat of his own car. Surveillance footage showed that Giselle's car had been to Scott Street more than once and stopped outside his house several times. Law enforcement thinks she put the phone there on purpose. Security at the nursing school looked at entry data linked to a stolen ID badge that was later found in Michelle's Honda and found to be more proof. Someone used the badge to get into sensitive parts of campus on May 26th, just 1 day before Michelle went missing. That person was definitely Giselle Esteban, as seen on surveillance. Giselle got the ID by pretending to be a potential student. She then started walking around the building, trying to get in through locked doors and into classrooms. She came back in a white lab coat after school was over for the day. She went back in through a back door, went through the same areas, checked the computers, and finally made it to a teacher's desk where she looked at Michelle's and other students' schedules. Now that Giselle knew where Michelle was and when class was over, she had all the information she needed. Cell phone records showed that Michelle's phone and Giselle's phone were both found in the same area at the same time after Michelle went missing. People saw Giselle go into an Apple store the next day and ask employees to unlock an iPhone, saying that her daughter had locked it by accident. After getting in, she left the store and was caught on camera using the phone to send fake messages to Michelle's friends at a nearby restaurant. The cell tower data showed that it was Michelle's phone. Giselle used the device while pretending to be Michelle, as seen on the video. Authorities had gathered a huge amount of evidence, even though there was no body to look at. Giselle Esteban, who is 27 years old, was arrested at her home and charged with murder in the first degree. Michelle's blood was found on the bottom of a pair of shoes that were found near her front door. A piece of Giselle's hair was found in Michelle's car, and her DNA was also on the steering wheel. Michelle was still missing when she was caught. She was reported missing by her family, who said in a statement, "Our focus is, and will always be, to bring Michelle home. We can't start to feel calm until we know where she is." The case became even scarier for the police after they looked through Giselle's computer. Giselle had been reading about how to sneakily cause heart attacks, how to follow someone without being seen, how to get into locked areas, and the effects of poisons like carbon monoxide and potassium chloride in the days before Michelle disappeared. When Michelle didn't show up, Giselle looked up her name online more than 300 times. Then, on September 17th, 10 days after Giselle was arrested, Michelle's family's worst fear came true. Michelle was found guilty. Michelle Lee's body was found in a shallow grave in a rough, remote area about 12 miles from Giselle Esteban's house after 3 agonizing months of searching. The body had broken down so badly that it was only made of bones, so the coroner couldn't say for sure what killed the person. California police confirmed that the body parts found in a canyon in the San Francisco Bay Area belonged to the nursing student who went missing in May. Following a plea of not guilty, Giselle Esteban went on trial in September 2012. She now admitted that she killed Michelle, but her defense said it wasn't planned. They said it was an impulsive act caused by anger, an outburst based on feelings rather than intent. The lawyers for Esteban tried to change the charge from first-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter. During the trial, Giselle didn't show any emotion. She didn't want to testify in her own defense, and she never said she felt bad about it. People watching noticed how cold she was. She was sitting still and expressionless, avoiding eye contact and not reacting to what was going on, or to Michelle's family's emotional testimonies. Some important details about the meeting were still not clear. Prosecutors put forward a strong theory about whether Giselle had waited in the parking garage, knowing Michelle's routine, or if she had sent Michelle a message to get her there. Michelle's schedule let Giselle know when to surprise her and attack her violently, most likely with a sharp object. This story explained why Michelle's blood was there, how quickly the crime happened, and how Giselle was able to hide Michelle in the back of the car and drive off without anyone noticing. The prosecutor painted a very bad picture of the crime. "What we have here is a sociopath," he stated. "This wasn't a sudden outburst. This was planned and thought out. Someone was hit by her and didn't see it coming." The jury said Giselle Esteban was guilty of killing someone in the first degree. As usual, she didn't show any emotion when the verdict was read. After the fact, she said that if she had been on the jury, she probably would have found herself guilty too. The judge, who had been a judge for decades, said that the evidence was some of the worst he had ever seen in a courtroom. Giselle Esteban was given a prison sentence of 25 years to life. One family had been destroyed by senseless violence, and the other had been destroyed by the effects of that violence. Michelle's family gave emotional statements during the sentencing. When Michael talked about Michelle's wish to become a nurse like their late mother, she broke down in tears. Those hopes were cut short in the parking garage of a hospital in the Bay Area. Someone killed them out of jealousy and false beliefs. Prosecutors said Giselle was sure Michelle was trying to steal her boyfriend, even though she had no proof. That wrong belief led to murder in the end. Giselle later had a son while she was in jail. The baby's father was given charge of him. There were rumors that Scott was the father, but he denied it, and the child's real father has never been found. After Michelle's death, her family turned their sadness into action by continuing to work with groups that look for missing people and bring attention to other victims. Michael, her brother, felt better because he thought Michelle was back with their mother. The thought of it made things a little less scary and painful, he said. That wraps up today's true crime story. If you found it interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and click the bell for more. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and keep seeking the truth.